Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. Back with you with the next video in my series, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Without further ado, returning to Great Expectations. This release had befallen her some 2 years before. For anything I knew, she was married again. The early dinner hour at Joe's left me abundance of time, without hurrying my talk with Biddy, to walk over to the old spot before dark. But, what with loitering on the way, to look at old objects and to think of old times. The day had quite declined when I came to the place. There was no house now, no brewery, no building whatever left, but the wall of the old garden. The cleared space had been enclosed with a rough fence, and, looking over it, I saw that some of the old ivy had struck root anew, and was growing green on low, quiet mounds of ruin. A gate in the fence standing ajar, I pushed it open and went in. A cold, silvery mist had veiled the afternoon, and the moon was not yet up to scatter it. But the stars were shining beyond the mist, and the moon was coming, and the evening was not dark. I could trace out where every part of the old house had been, and where the brewery had been, and where the gate, and where the casks. I had done so, and was looking along the desolate garden walk, when I beheld a solitary figure in it. The figure showed itself aware of me, as I advanced. It had been moving towards me, but it stood still. As I drew nearer, I saw it to be the figure of a woman. As I drew nearer yet, it was about to turn away when it stopped, and let me come up with it. Then it faltered, as if much surprised, and uttered my name, and I cried out, "Estella! I am greatly changed. I wonder if you know me." The freshness of her beauty was indeed gone, but its indescribable majesty and its indescribable charm remained. Those attractions in it I had seen before. What I had never seen before was the saddened, softened light of the once proud eyes. What I had never felt before was the friendly touch of the once insensible hand. We sat down on a bench that was near, and I said, "After so many years, it is strange that we should meet again. Estella, here where our first meeting was, do you often come back?" "I have never been here since." "Nor I." The moon began to rise, and I thought of the placid look at the white ceiling, which had passed away. The moon began to rise, and I thought of the pressure on my hand when I had spoken the last words he had heard on earth. Estella was the next to break the silence that ensued between us. I have very often hoped and intended to come back, but have been prevented by many circumstances. Poor old place." The silvery mist was touched with the first rays of the moonlight, and the same rays touched the tears that dropped from her eyes. Not knowing that I saw them, and setting herself to get the better of them, she said quietly, "Were you wondering, as you walked along, how it came to be left in this condition?" "Yes, Estella. The ground belongs to me. It is the only possession I have not relinquished. Everything else has gone from me, little by little, but I have kept this. It was the subject of the only determined resistance I made in all the wretched years. Is it to be built on? At last it is. I came here to take leave of it before its change. And you?" she said, in a voice of touching interest to a wanderer. "You live abroad still?" "Still. And do well, I am sure?"
I work pretty hard for a sufficient living, and therefore, yes, I do well. I have often thought of you, said Estella. Have you? Of late, very often. There was a long, hard time when I kept far from you. The remembrance of what I had thrown away was quite ignorant of its worth. But since my duty has not been incompatible with the admission of that remembrance, I have given it a place in my heart. You have always held your place in my heart, I answered. And when we were silent again, until she spoke. I little thought, said Estella, that I should take leave of you in taking leave of this spot. I am very glad to do so. Glad to part again, Estella? To me, parting is a painful thing. To me, the remembrance of our last parting has been ever mournful and painful. But you said to me, returned Estella, very earnestly, God bless you, God forgive you. And if you could say that to me then, you will not hesitate to say that to me now. Now when suffering has been stronger than all other teaching, and has taught me to understand what your heart used to be. I have been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape. Be as considerate and good to me as you were, and tell me we are friends. We are friends, said I, rising and bending over her, as she rose from the bench. And will continue friends apart, said Estella. I took her hand in mine, and we went out of the ruined place, and, as the morning mists had risen long ago when I first left the forge, so the evening mists were rising now, and in all the broad expanse of tranquil light they showed to me, I saw no shadow of another parting from her. Beautiful. That concludes Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, as read by Lord Naren White, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. I very much hope you enjoyed this epic story by Charles Dickens, and I know that I did. I have a lot of thoughts, and I don't want to make analysis videos of any of the books I read as of this time. Because you can really get lost in a good way in terms of literary analyses of books. I know that I very much used to love analyzing books by myself, and in my own way now as well. I enjoy it because of the fact that there are a lot of lessons to take away, and I don't want to spoil conclusions for you because one of these is pretty obvious. For example, you can see in one of the passages, Pip thinks that Joe is like talking down to him, but in actuality, Joe is the best friend Pip has ever had or will have in this book, and it just goes to show how Pip is not a reliable narrator in the story, and that's what the term is called. He's an unreliable narrator, and I don't want to continue discussing, analyses of this book because not only can you find other analyses online, but the point is that you should come to your own conclusions about what you believe Pip did right and wrong in the story, what you believe the real themes are in the story, and what do you believe the lessons and message that Charles Dickens was trying to convey when he wrote Great Expectations really are. And I bring up that example to you of Pip being an unreliable narrator because you have probably put that together yourself. As soon as he criticizes Joe, in my mind, a light bulb goes off because Dickens shows and doesn't tell us, that we see that Joe is Pip's best friend, but Pip is unreliable about that fact as a narrator. With that in mind, I want to go ahead and say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care. And thanks again.